The road to grace. Daniel Carter never considered himself a religious man. He had grown up in a home where church was more of an obligation than a belief, and by the time he reached adulthood, he had left it behind entirely. Life was about hard work, success, and self-reliance. Faith had no place in it. At 38, Daniel had everything the world told him he needed to be happy: a high-paying job, a sleek apartment in the city, and the admiration of his peers. But beneath it all, he felt an emptiness he couldn't explain. No matter how much he achieved, it never seemed to be enough. One evening, after another exhausting day at the office, Daniel found himself wandering aimlessly through the streets. He wasn't sure why, but he felt an urge to walk, to escape the weight pressing down on him. As he turned a corner, he noticed a small church with its doors open. Soft music drifted out, and for reasons he didn't understand, he stepped inside. The church was nearly empty except for a few people kneeling in silent prayer. At the front, an elderly pastor stood, speaking gently about the grace of God. Daniel sat in the back, intending to stay only for a moment. But as the pastor spoke of forgiveness and love of our Savior who bore the burdens of the world, Daniel felt something stir within him. That night, he couldn't shake the words he had heard. They lingered in his mind, pulling at something deep inside. Over the next few weeks, he returned to the church, listening but keeping his distance. He had so many questions, so many doubts. Could faith really fill the void he had been carrying for so long? One Sunday, the pastor spoke directly about surrender, about how trying to control everything only led to exhaustion, but trusting in Jesus brought true peace. Those words broke something inside Daniel. He had spent his whole life striving for something he couldn't even name, always feeling like he was falling short. For the first time, he saw that he didn't have to carry it all alone. That night, alone in his apartment, Daniel knelt beside his bed. He had never prayed sincerely before, but now, with tears in his eyes, he whispered, "Jesus, if you're real, if you really love me, I need you." In that moment, he felt something he had never known before, a peace that flooded through him, a warmth that eased the ache in his heart. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but it was undeniable. For the first time in his life, he wasn't alone. From that day forward, Daniel's life began to change. He still had struggles, still had questions, but he no longer faced them alone. He started reading the Bible, joining a small group at church, and slowly, he felt his heart transform. He found joy not in success, but in love for God, for others, and even for himself. Daniel Carter, the man who had once believed he needed nothing but himself, had finally found everything in Jesus Christ.